Welcome to this explainer. Now, if you've ever found yourself bogged down trying to read dense 19th century sociology, or honestly, if you're just someone who absorbs information much better by listening, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking a really deep, guided journey into a foundational text, Gustave Le Bon's 1895 classic, The Crowd, A Study of the Popular Mind. We're going to completely unpack his core arguments, translate his rather academic, older phrasing into plain English, and, importantly, see how these ideas might apply to our modern digital world. But we're also going to be careful to observe the specific historical context he was writing from, because, 1895 was a very different time. So, settle in and let's get into it. Okay, here is our roadmap for this overview. We'll be following the exact chronological structure of Le Bon's book. First up is the introduction, The Era of Crowds. Then we'll dive into Book 1, The Mind of Crowds. Next is Book 2, The Opinions and Beliefs of Crowds. And finally, we'll wrap up with Book 3, Classifying Crowds. Let's start right at the beginning with his introduction, The Era of Crowds. Le Bon opens his book with an absolutely massive claim. He's essentially saying the old world is dead. Think about it. For centuries upon centuries, the destinies of nations, the way society was structured, was dictated entirely by things like the divine right of kings and strict religious authority. But as he observed in the late 19th century, those traditional pillars were collapsing, and in their place, a chaotic new age had emerged. He argues that we have entered an era ruled entirely by the absolute, unquestionable power of the masses. The divine right of the king has been permanently replaced by the divine right of the crowd. And this is a huge shift because, as he severely warns us right from the start, crowds possess incredible power to destroy, to tear down old structures, but they have absolutely no ability to build anything new. To make this concrete, Le Bon uses a really vivid biological metaphor. He views crowds almost like microbes, the tiny organisms that break down a sick or dying body. He argued crowds hasten the destruction of worn-out civilizations. Now, for our modern application, it is incredibly easy to look at that concept today and see parallels in things like cancel culture, online outrage cycles, or the rapid, sweeping decentralization of modern institutions. It feels like the exact same thing, right? Well, we have to be really careful here. Applying 19th century mob theory, which strictly relied on physical bodies packed tightly together in a town square, to our borderless digital algorithms is a pretty massive stretch of Le Bon's original scope. He was talking about physical contagion, so we just need to keep that in mind as we apply his theories to the internet. Moving right along to Book I, The Mind of Crowds. So, what exactly is a crowd? Well, to Le Bon, a psychological crowd is not just a bunch of people standing near each other on a street corner. It's an actual state of mind. It's almost a biological transformation. When an individual is absorbed into this mass, their conscious personality, their critical thinking, their individuality simply vanishes. It's basically a hypnotic state. The person becomes an automaton, driven entirely by base instinct and the spinal cord rather than the brain. And here is perhaps his most shocking takeaway from this section. The moment they join the crowd, a brilliant, highly educated scientist and an uneducated, illiterate laborer become intellectual equals. Their individual intelligence no longer matters at all, because the crowd mind only operates on primitive emotion. To really understand this collective mind, you have to understand how it thinks. And Le Bon says it thinks exclusively in images. Now, pay close attention here, because he doesn't mean literal photographs or paintings. He means vivid, highly theatrical mental impressions and emotional symbols. A crowd absolutely does not care about facts or statistics or nuanced data. They can't process them. Instead, they react to grand, sweeping narratives. They need an image of a glorious, world-changing victory, a terrifying, existential threat, or a heinous, unforgivable crime. That is the only language the crowd understands. Because crowds are completely hypnotized by these mental images, their general characteristics are incredibly volatile. Le Bon lists a few key traits. First, they're wildly impulsive and mobile. They can shift from extreme self-sacrificing heroism to absolute bloodthirsty cruelty in literally a split second. Second, they're highly suggestible. An idea spreads through them like a virus. Third, they are overwhelmingly credulous. Doubt just doesn't exist for a crowd. A tiny, unfounded suspicion instantly transforms into absolute, unquestionable certainty. And finally, their sentiments are always exaggerated, which naturally leads to a fierce, dictatorial intolerance. They demand absolute conformity. Let's look at the modern application of this.
If you examine how social media echo chambers operate today, you'll see that algorithms literally reward and amplify this exact kind of emotional contagion and extreme sentiment. It's a perfect digital mirror of his theory. However, we need a quick bias check here. As noted on the slide, Le Bon's historical framing often compares this crowd mentality to what he blatantly called savages, children, or inferior beings. That 19th century elitist colonial mindset is deeply dated and frankly offensive today. But the brilliant thing is, we can objectively extract his core mechanics of collective intellectual degradation and group dynamics while entirely leaving his prejudiced framework in the past where it belongs.
All right, let's turn the page to Book 2, The Opinions and Beliefs of Crowds. Now, what's really fascinating here is how these collective minds actually form their deeply held beliefs. Le Bon breaks this down into two distinct parts: remote factors and immediate factors. Think of it like building a massive bonfire. The remote factors are the dry wood. These are the deeply rooted historical elements, things like long-standing traditions, educational systems, or simply the slow passage of time. They lay the groundwork in a society's unconscious mind over centuries. Then you have the immediate factors. These are the matches that ignite the fire. Words, simple formulas, and grand illusions evoke those vivid mental images we just talked about. For instance, the word democracy or liberty might mean entirely different things to different cultures based on their remote factors, but the magical, illusionary power of the word itself is what instantly commands the crowd's devotion. So how exactly does a leader step up and hijack this prepared, tinder-dry crowd? Well, Le Bon outlines an incredibly precise 4-step playbook for mass persuasion. Step 1 is affirmation. The leader makes a bold, simple, uncompromising claim with zero proof. Step 2 is repetition. They repeat that affirmation endlessly until it bypasses logic and just feels universally true. Step 3 is contagion. At this point, the leader steps back and the idea organically spreads horizontally through the crowd like a virus. But the secret sauce, the absolute key to the whole shebang, that's step 4, prestige. Prestige is a paralyzing, almost magical aura of authority. Le Bon frequently points to Napoleon as the ultimate example, a leader whose sheer magnetic prestige demanded instant, unthinking obedience from millions.
To translate that quote into plain English, logic and reasoned debate are entirely useless here. If a leader stands up and tries to present a rational, nuanced chain of facts or a complicated spreadsheet, they've already lost the crowd, period. The masses only ever respond to the bold, simple affirmation, the grand illusion, and the sheer, unquestionable prestige of the person delivering it.
For our modern application, it is staggering how much this reads like a modern playbook for digital mass persuasion. Marketing, sales funnels, corporate branding, and modern political campaigns rely almost exclusively on simple affirmations and relentless algorithm-driven repetition. And today, it goes even further. With the rise of AI-generated images and deepfakes, the vivid theatrical illusions that Le Bon warned about can be mass-produced instantly and injected right into our feeds. These tools directly target our collective inability to separate reality from emotional imagination. Moving on to our final major section, Book 3, Classification and Description of Crowds. Here, Le Bon categorizes the exact taxonomy of crowds. He basically divides all crowds into two main buckets. First, you have heterogeneous crowds. These are made of completely diverse, random individuals. This could be an anonymous street riot or a non-anonymous criminal jury. Then, on the other side, you have homogeneous crowds. These are grouped by very specific shared identities. Think of a religious sect, a strict military caste, or a defined social class. But here is the critical takeaway. Despite their structural differences, Le Bon absolutely insists that all of them, from the street mob to the military elite, ultimately fall victim to the exact same psychological laws of the crowd mind. And that leads us to perhaps his most controversial and uncomfortable claim in the whole book. Le Bon insists that highly respected, high-minded institutions, specifically parliamentary assemblies and criminal juries, operate with the exact same emotional irrationality as a violent street mob. He argues that a jury doesn't vote based on complex legal nuance or dry forensic evidence. No, they vote based on the prestige of the lawyer speaking to them, or the emotional, vivid imagery of the victim's story. Even a room full of distinguished, highly educated experts in a parliament will quickly devolve into making simplistic, exaggerated decisions guided purely by whoever in the room holds the most prestige. Now, as we evaluate his broader taxonomy, we have to do another serious bias check. Le Bon relies heavily on a concept he calls the genius of the race. arguing that deeply innate biological characteristics dictate how different civilizations form crowds. We need to be crystal clear. Biological determinism is a speculative, highly prejudiced concept from the 19th century that has been entirely debunked by modern science. But again, the value of this book isn't in his speculative biology. We can easily separate his observable, brilliant psychological insights into group dynamics from those fatal, unscientific flaws.
Now, before you lose all hope for humanity, there is one major caveat to all this terrifying power. The crowd state is entirely provisional. It is temporary. Le Bon goes out of his way to point out that the very same men who acted as bloodthirsty, uncompromising executioners during the wildest days of the French Revolution quietly returned to being peaceable, law-abiding notaries and virtuous magistrates once the storm had passed and the physical crowd dissolved. Once the hypnotic spell breaks, the individual intellect returns.
To wrap up his vast theories, Le Bon concludes with a sweeping historical narrative of how civilizations rise and fall. It's a cycle. They start in the era of dawn as a confused, disorganized swarm of barbarians, essentially a basic crowd. Over centuries of growth, they slowly unite under a shared dream or an ideal, blending into a unified people. They reach their zenith as a flourishing civilization with high culture and deep institutions. But time eventually wears that unifying ideal away. The civilization enters a period of decay. Institutions lose their meaning, unity fractures, and in the final hour, the society regresses right back into a chaotic, primitive crowd, ready to be swept away by history and replaced. Which brings us to a final, rather provocative thought. Le Bon firmly believed the crowd state was a temporary physical phenomenon. People gather, they riot, they go home. But today, we live in persistent, hyper-connected digital networks where affirmation, repetition, and contagion happen literally 24/7. We carry the crowd in our pockets. So, are we permanently trapped in the final hour of Le Bon's cycle? Has the internet made it impossible to ever escape the destructive psychology of the crowd? It's something to think deeply about the next time you find yourself scrolling through the endless stream of images and illusions in your daily feed. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this provided a solid substitute for tackling the book yourself.